Dear viewers, Charlie traps Zinn in a Shangri-La room with a MasterCard and a signal jammer. As Zinn panics, Charlie appears, claiming to be Chang Ying-Wade's son. He slaps Zinn for insulting his father, then accuses the Su family of being involved in his parents' deaths. Zinn is severely criticized for abandoning Ruoli, betraying Leona and Ziyu for power. Charlie intends to destroy the Su family. Zinn is terrified, realizing his fate will be like Shoude's, locked in a dog cage. Enjoy the story, thank you.
Chapter 2691. Just as Zinn was expecting that he could use his own power to turn the Su family's turmoil upside down on his own, but he didn't know that a big net had wrapped him tightly. Charlie already had a two-handed plan at this time. If the person next door is Zinn, then he has a special package specially prepared for Zinn. But if the person next door is not Zinn, but someone else from the Su family, then he will go directly to Orvel's kennel, and give a company with Shoude. Isik screened out the rooms that were booked out before and after that time and had not checked out one by one according to the time of the next room reservation, and then further screened them. Basically, it can be concluded that the Su family came to Shangri-La this time, except for staying. In addition to the person next to Charlie, there are 4 other subordinates. Of these 4 people, 2 live opposite the room next to Charlie, and the other 2 live next to Charlie. At this time, many of Isaac's subordinates were already lying in ambush in nearby rooms. Once Charlie gave orders, they would immediately control these 4 subordinates. In addition, Isaac also made people prepare to shield and cut off the network signal. When Charlie ordered, he could immediately protect the room next to Charlie and the surrounding rooms, and kill all communication networks. The mobile communication signal will be shielded, the wireless Wi-Fi network will be cut off, and even the traditional network and line interface will also be disconnected from the network. At that time, this will make sure that the people in this room cannot respond immediately, and the communication will not work for them. In order to meet the master from the Su family for a while, Charlie walked out of the room after getting dressed neatly. At this time, a waiter arranged by Isaac walked over and handed Charlie a room card. This one is the universal room card for the entire Shangri-La hotel. Nowadays, almost all hotels adopt electronic room card system for the convenience of management. The door locks need to be opened with an authorized room card at the front desk of the hotel. Generally, the room card will be authorized for as long as you stay, and it will automatically become invalid after the expiration date. It is easy to manage and can prevent being used by others. In other words, the door lock of each room is actually controlled within the hotel management system. Although you cannot directly control the opening or closing of a certain door, you can directly write the administrator's highest authority in the room card, so that this room card can open all the doors of this hotel. However, there are exceptions. If the occupant in the room opens the anti-theft lock in the room, the door cannot be opened even if the door is swiped. However, many people do not have such safety awareness, so they rarely use this lock actively. Zinn did use the lock last night, but after his subordinates came in just now to report, he didn't lock the lock again, but hurried to the bathroom to wash up. This was mainly because he was somewhat careless and didn't know that he had been exposed. Therefore, when Charlie got the room card and swiped it lightly on Zinn's room door, the door lock opened in response. At this time, Zinn was still tidying up his clothes and appearance in the cloakroom. Charlie pushed the door, and when he entered, he didn't realize it at all. And Charlie had already used his perceptual ability beyond ordinary people to get a clear picture of his position in the room. At this time, Zinn, at the upper right of the T-shaped room, where the bathroom and cloakroom are located. After Charlie came in from the upper left, he went directly to the living room at the lower left and sat down. Opposite Charlie is the bedroom door of this luxurious suite. Zinn dressed up at the upper right, and needed to go back to the bedroom later before he could walk out of the door in front of Charlie. So Charlie simply sat there, on the sofa opposite the door, stretched out his hands with long legs, and put them on the back of the sofa until he appeared. At the same time, the signal jammer has also been opened, and all the surrounding mobile phones are in a state of no service because they cannot search for signals. Although Zinn's mobile phone is still connected to the hotel's wireless network, the wireless network itself has been cut off. In other words, although he is still connected to the Wi-Fi, he can no longer get on the internet. But Zinn didn't pay attention to this. He tidied up his suit and tie in front of the mirror, and after making sure that he was dressed appropriately, he took out a fake beard and stuck it under his nose. Later, he took out a pair of gold glasses from his pocket. After putting it on, he looked like a returned overseas Chinese. Immediately afterward, he put a top hat of the same color as the suit on top of his head. He felt that this way, it would be more foolproof. When he was ready, Zinn picked up the phone and prepared to go outside, but he looked down at the phone and found that the phone is now in a non-service state, which made him surprised and wondered, how can this hotel not connect to a mobile phone signal? Is my phone broke? He opened WeChat again, and found that the top of WeChat actually showed that it was not connected. He was even more surprised and whispered to himself, no. The Wi-Fi logo is on, and the network is connected. Why can't I connect to WeChat? He hurriedly walked out of the cloakroom and walked through the bedroom to the living room, to use the hotel's landline to call his subordinates. However, when he stepped out of the bedroom, his whole figure was suddenly startled. The speed of his heartbeat instantly doubled. Because, he saw that there was a person sitting on the sofa in the living room. Moreover, the appearance of this person is indescribably familiar. Zinn panicked and asked calmly, "Who are you? Why are you doing in my room?" Charlie smiled at Zinn and said with a smile, "You are Zynn Su, right?" Zinn saw that the other party directly reported his name, and asked extremely vigilantly, "Who are you? Do you know me?" Charlie said with a smile, "Actually, we have met, but you may be older and out of mind. You used it, so you can't remember me. Have you seen me?" Zinn frowned, his heart was extremely nervous, but his mouth was pretending to be calm and said, "Why don't I remember that I met you?" Charlie went to the coffee table. Picking up an apple, he took a bite and said, "Think about it carefully. We met at the elevator entrance of the Tokyo hospital. Have you ever recalled?" Zinn squinted his eyes, watching Charlie vigilantly, while thinking back, quickly rummaging the memory in the mind. Soon, he remembered the scene Charlie said. He pointed to Charlie and exclaimed, "You're the kid who makes me feel familiar in Tokyo." Charlie nodded slightly, and asked him with a smile, "Why do you think I'm familiar?" Zinn said coldly, "Because you look like a short-lived ghost that I knew before, but has been dead for a long time." Charlie's expression instantly became extremely cold. Said, "Zinn, if you kneel down and slap your face right now, I will assume that you haven't said that, otherwise, I will slap your face." Zinn sees Charlie's cold expression and can't help being a little surprised. He couldn't help asking, "How are you related to Changying Wade?" Charlie stood up and said word by word, "Changying Wade, it's my dad." When Zinn heard this, his whole person was suddenly struck by lightning, and stood motionless in front of Charlie. He never dreamed that Changying's son was still alive. He didn't even expect that Changying's son would appear in front of him. At this time, in addition to the nervousness, his heart was a little more angry. Changying again. Ever since I knew Leona, the word Changying has become my nightmare. Until Leona was in a car accident a few days ago and her whereabouts unknown, I was a little free from Changying's shadow, but now here comes another Changying's son. Where did this guy come from? Seeing Charlie and Changying's features and temperament are very similar, Zinn hardly doubted his words. He stared at Charlie and asked in a cold voice, "Even if you are Changying's son, what do you mean by appearing in my room now?" "What do I mean?" Charlie sneered. "I have come to you to settle the account. What do you think about it?" Settlement. Zinn saw Charlie's visit being unkind, and when he thought that he was now in Wade's hotel and there was no one around him to help him, he couldn't help feeling even more flustered. Therefore, he couldn't hide his nervousness and said, "Your father and I are at best distant acquaintances, no friendship, no hatred, what do you count on me?" Charlie coldly said, "Today, I will count it against you. Wade League's account, you jumped up and down to organize the anti-Wade alliance against my father, right?" Zinn excused himself. The anti-Wade alliance is just a saying at the beginning, just like airlines have SkyTeam and Star Alliance. Everyone is a rival to each other, what's the big deal with that? Charlie asked, "Then how did my parents die?" Zinn blurted out, "How do I know? Your parents' deaths were not caused by me. The people who wanted to kill your parents back then had more hair on their heads than mine. Not only domestically, but also abroad, there are a lot of them. Is it possible to kill him? What does it have to do with me?" Charlie smiled and said, "Is it related to you or not?" I really can't say it right now, but it doesn't matter, since you are in my hands, I can catch you first, and then slowly investigate. Zinn subconsciously reprimanded, boy, since you are Changying's son, you should call me uncle, I am also your elder, how dare you so presumptuous in front of me. Presumptuous. Charlie snorted, this is presumptuousness. I just said that if you don't kneel down, I will smash your mouth. You haven't fulfilled your promise. So, Zinn took a step back in shock, and said nervously, you think you are the Wade family's son, you can do anything to me casually. Have you Wade, if you provoke me, what will happen to you? Charlie sneered and said, I don't know what will be the end, but I usually like to provoke it first. As soon as the voice fell, Charlie suddenly stood up from the sofa. Before Zinn recovered, Charlie went straight. He rushed to him, grabbed his collar, put his other hand directly on his face, and slapped vigorously. With a snap, Zinn's entire left face suddenly swelled up, and the 5 fingerprints on his face were already bright red. At this moment the Soviet conservative directly hit Mongolia, and his hysterical roared. How dare you? Charlie was astonished and asked, how dare I, you do not know the answer. Then, direct and it was a slap in the face, and with a slap, Zinn directly vomited blood. At this time, Charlie smiled and asked him, do you know the answer now? If you don't know, I can answer you again. Since Zinn had been slapped twice by Charlie, his whole body had already been dazzled. The severe pain made his whole person on the verge of collapse. When he grew up so big, he had only been beaten by the old man, but even the old man has never beaten him so hard. He yelled at Charlie angrily, do you know what the Su family is capable of? Believe it or not, I can kill you in minutes. Charlie waved his hand and said disdainfully, Zynn Su, save it, you have already fallen in my hands, don't pretend to be aggressive and cruel in front of me, and don't think you can overwhelm me by taking the Su family, because my goal is not as simple as slapping you twice. Zinn asked nervously, what is your goal? Charlie smiled and said, my goal is to trample your entire Su family under my feet, not only with big ears but also big eyes. The face of your dad. Chungfeng Su. Zinn has never met someone like Charlie who speaks so arrogantly in his life. However, he also knows that he is now the turtle in the urn of others, and he has no chance to escape. If he really angers the other party, he might actually get more in trouble. As a result, his whole person's momentum instantly weakened, and he explained, Big nephew, you really misunderstood me about your parents. This matter has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with my family. Charlie said, it doesn't matter. You don't have the final say, but I have the final say here. Zinn asked nervously, so, what do you want? Charlie smiled and said, what I want, I just said that, I will draw your face first, then your dad's face, and then trample your entire Su family under my feet. Zinn was shocked in his heart, and never dreamed that Changying's son would come to find him. Gosh, this guy is so murderous. At this moment, he suddenly thought that his younger brother Shoude had disappeared in this city, so he subconsciously asked, is my younger brother in your hands? Charlie nodded. You are talking about Shoude, that dead fat pig. Yes, he is indeed in my hands. Do you know how he is doing now? Zinn asked with a pale face, what did you do to him? Charlie smiled and said, oh, I put him in a dog cage. By the way, I shot a video of him. He was stripped naked and only wore a pair of briefs. He said in the video some nasty things about your family, you should have seen this. Zinn immediately thought of the 2 videos that completely destroyed the reputation of the Su family. There is a paragraph, which Shoude said in front of the camera. Zinn had racked his brains to think about someone behind the scenes, but he didn't expect that this person was Changying's son. He couldn't help but swallowed his saliva, looked at Charlie nervously, and asked, then what is your plan for today? At this time, what he is most afraid of is that he, like his brother, is locked in a dog cage in the dark. Charlie smiled indifferently and said, I know what you are thinking, but don't you? I'm nervous. It was really too simple and rude to put your brother directly in the dog cage at the beginning. It really lacks some artistic sense, so I designed a whole set of super gift packages for you this time. It is definitely a brand new design and a brand new experience. If you enjoy the whole process, can remember you for a lifetime, and it will be worthwhile to cover you in this life, not in vain. As the son of the Su family, Zinn has definitely seen many big scenes for so many years, but the whole person is in an unprecedented panic towards Charlie, who is in his 20s. He didn't understand why the Wade family descendant in front of him was so fierce that he attacked the Su family one after another without any scruples. In the beginning, even when the competition between Su and Wade was the fiercest, no one dared to play such a fierce tactic. After all, both sides are very strong, which is equivalent to two countries with nuclear weapons. Desperately at balance with each other. However, Changying's son didn't care about it at all. He directly tied Shoude, which in itself was not enough to put the Su family in his eyes. Now, instead of converging, he aimed at himself. This kind of person is simply a disruptor of the rules of the game. Seeing Charlie's aggressiveness unabated, Zinn's heart was tense, and his mouth softened somewhat. He said seriously, although the Eastcliff families have been fighting for so many decades, everyone still retains some basic respect. Although I formed the anti-Wade alliance back then, I have never done anything to your parents' personal safety, or threatened them. Why are you here to ambush me and kidnap me? Charlie asked coldly, are you dead? Zinn's expression was startled. What do you mean? Charlie asked again, I'm asking you, you are dead no. Zinn coldly snorted. Joke, if I die, is the one standing in front of you a ghost? Charlie nodded. Yes, you are not dead, but my parents are dead. You keep saying you have never threatened the personal safety of my parents, but my parents have passed away for nearly 20 years. You now casually say that it has nothing to do with you. Do you think I will believe it? Zinn said nervously. You can disbelieve it, but you have to know that even in the law, it is a presumption of innocence. If you have evidence that your parents' death is related to me, then you have to kill me. But if you have no evidence, you can only prove that the death of your parents has something to do with me. Charlie smiled. Mr. Zinn, you are a little too naive. Since you're here, you think you will tell me the truth about these rules. If you fall into my hands, you have to play according to my rules and see what happens to your brother. You should be able to know. Quote. Zinn was shocked, blurted out. I am the eldest son of Su and I am the future heir. My family will not let you. Charlie curled his lip. Since I am not afraid that the Su family retaliates, and I tell you, this matter is far from over with you. Your father Changfeng is also on my list. In addition, if your Su family is found out by me, who else is with my parents? There is a connection between his death, or whoever is not convinced, I will solve them all one by one. Zinn questioned in a panic. You don't have any actual evidence right now, so you will attack my family again and again. Is there any morality or justification? The morality or justification? Charlie sneered. Your family is not worthy to mention these two words. Zinn frowned. What do you mean? Charlie smiled. What do I mean? You are not clear in your heart. I ask you, Ruoli is your illegitimate daughter. Zinn heard these words, the expression was a bit embarrassing, and the voice was a little emboldened and said, Ruoli is indeed my illegitimate daughter, but I am not the one who harmed her. Charlie nodded. I know, your father is the one who harmed her. Right. Zinn dodges Charlie's aggressive eyes, hesitatingly excuses. I haven't got any definitive proof of this matter until now, so whether it is my father or not has yet to be confirmed. Charlie smiled shamefully. What a trash. Zinn blurted out and asked, what do you mean? Charlie yelled, I said you were really a trash. A total trash. Having said that, Charlie pointed to Zinn's face that was swollen into a pig's head, and said coldly, Ruoli is your illegitimate daughter, and instead of giving her the care and love of her father, you use her as a tool of murder and instigation. She wantonly kills innocents, and all the evil deeds she killed Matsumoto mansions in Japan are all under your indictment. You are unkind, shameless, cruel and unjust, and in vain as a father. Also, Ruoli's biological mother was by your side for so many years, she had done her best to protect you, she broke an arm for you, and then gave birth to Ruoli for you, but how? Did you treat her? Have you openly acknowledged her identity? Have you paid for her? Say a word of thanks. You not only failed your own flesh and blood, but you also failed the person who loved you most in the world. Zinn's expression suddenly became very ugly, but anger is not overwhelming, but what is overwhelming is the shame. Charlie looked at him and continued, that's all, but when Ruoli was arrested, instead of saving your own bones and blood, your family colluded with the self-defense forces inside and out, using Ruoli's life to give the self-defense forces in exchange for military exploits. Although this is not what you did, it is the insidious handwriting of your father Changfeng. You have no affection, shamelessly, and cruel, and your father Changfeng is your enhanced version. A nest of rats, I am talking about. Zinn's eyes were a little dodge, and his face became flushed. Charlie said coldly, Ms. Leona is your wife, who will give birth to you. Xiu is your eldest daughter, supposed to be your jewel in your palm, but your family laid a net to kill the mother and daughter in Oris Hill. This is more than unkindness, shamelessness, cruelty, and injustice. This is simply a disregard of human relations. The scum of society and the dregs of the world, punishable in the worst possible way. Zinn blurted out subconsciously, I never wanted to kill Ruoli, let alone kill Xiu and her mother. These are all my father did. Charlie coldly said, even if these are your father's actions, as a husband, as a father, you don't need to protect your wife and daughter. After the accident of your wife and daughter, did you avenge your wife and daughter? But instead, you ran to him from Australia. With a flattering face beside your father, you knelt and licked the murderer and helped the gang to abuse your blood. This proves that you are not only disregarding human relations, unkindness, and shameless undertakings but also selling daughter for glory and wife for glory. You sell personality, character, dignity, and flesh and blood, just to be able to inherit the Su family's property in the future. In your eyes, money is more important than anything else, and you are just a damn pile of shish. Charlie was already extremely strong, coupled with being a top expert and aura, so when his emotions became stronger and stronger, every word he said made Zinn feel like he was hammering his heart. Zinn's heart, under Charlie's repeated rebuke, repeatedly suffered heavy hammers, and the whole person's mind became extremely fragile. Charlie looked at him and asked, Zinn, have you ever thought that if your two daughters are already dead, how will you face them after death? When you see them, how do you kneel and confess to them? Or you won't confess at all, because you are an inhuman beast at the end of the day. You don't care about anyone's life and death, you only care about your own prosperity and wealth. Maybe Ruoli's death, give what you exchanged as Changfeng's guilt, perhaps Xiu's death gave you Changfeng's trust. And the deaths of the two of them were combined, and the one exchanged for you was as the heir of the Su family. The supreme glory. If your son Zhufei dies and can change you back to the position of the richest man in the world, will you agree to it without hesitation? I guess you will definitely agree because you want only the glory, the coronation crown. You do not care about your body yellow robe, sewn with the flesh of your sons and daughters, but you care about your head crown, with their man-made bone. Quote, in my opinion, even if you make two ascend to the throne with only the heads of your one son, two daughters, and three people in your hand, and you will never hesitate. Take you as a person, you will even cut off the heads of the three of them with your own hands.